was just thinking about something. This looks very good. I mean, to me, it just looks like two kids who really love each other. You ever fight?
Very rarely do we ever get into any kind of argument. We just really admire one another. We respect one another. We love one another. But most of all, we know that God had a plan for us to be together. And we can't give anybody else credit but Him for putting us together.
And that's easily something that people say, but for us, we really did. When we met, Joey told me, she had seen me play at a songwriter's night, and she told me, I knew at that moment that you were the person I'm supposed to spend the rest of my life with. And then I prayed.
Now where was that?
The first time I ever saw him perform was at the Bluebird Cafe there in Nashville.
Yeah, a lot of writers.
A lot of writers, and I was just new to Nashville, and I didn't know the songwriting community. I didn't know anything about it. I just was so naive, coming from Alexandria. But, and I just loved the way that he wrote, the way that he talked, the way that he walked, just his presence. And he just had a real kindness to him. And I didn't even meet him that night, and I just, sitting, watching him perform, I said to myself, I don't know who that man is, but I'm going to marry him someday. And it wasn't until a couple songs later that he introduced his daughters to the crowd. And so I just assumed he was married, and I just went on about my life in Nashville and working. 2 years pass, and I heard that he was playing another songwriter's night. And when I found out that he was, I said, I've got to go. I just have to see if all those feelings I had are still there. And by that time, I learned that he was a single dad, that he had raised his daughters by himself from the time they were tiny little babies. And that just made me love him even more. And then after that night, it was over for me. I was like, oh my goodness.
Very first conversation I had with her, she told me about that she had seen me play at the Bluebird 2 years before that. And she said, I knew at that moment, we're going to spend the rest of our lives together. And believe it or not, it took me a little while to catch up to her. And so I prayed, like, God, am I really supposed to be with this girl? And it was, God had been really working on my character and my life for a couple of years. And when she came into my life, into our lives, the girls and I prayed, okay, God, if I'm really supposed to be with her, I need a sign from you. And I think you'll appreciate this story. So I said, I need a real sign. Now, I probably shouldn't have asked for that, but I felt like it was so unusual for a woman this beautiful to come to a guy like me and go, you're who I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. Usually I'm chasing a woman this beautiful and she's running from me. So I said, God, am I really supposed to be with this woman? I need a sign. So I played again at the Bluebird Cafe, and Joey went with me. She was there and her mother was there, and Joey got up and sang a song that we wrote together. And then we went back to her little apartment, and I was asking her, I said, where did you learn to play music? And she said, well, my dad played guitar growing up.
Yeah.
And I said, my dad played guitar growing up. And I said, well, what kind of songs did they play? And she said, well, my mom and dad sang songs. I don't know who sang them. They were just songs that they sang around the house. I don't know who did them on the radio. I said, my dad did songs that I didn't know who sang them. They were just songs my dad did. I said, like what? And she picked up the guitar.
Get your guitar there.
And she sang this.
Have I told you lately that I love you?
But what's amazing about that is she didn't just sing a pretty song. When I was a boy growing up, my dad wanted to move to Nashville and be a singer, and he knew about 10 songs, and he lived in Kansas, and he worked for the railroad, so it never happened. And he passed away in 1988, and my dad's favorite song of all time was Have I Told You Lately That I Love You? So.
And when his father passed away, they sang one song at his funeral. And it was, Have I Told You Lately That I Love You? And I think it was kind of at that moment where Rory said, okay, God, I don't need any more signs. This is where I'm supposed to go, and I won't question you. And
So I married the supermodel.
we started dating, and for 2 months, we made a trip back here for my folks to meet Rory.
In Alexandria,
Indiana. We came here and
Brought the girls with us.
Brought the girls with us, And that night, we went and talked to my mama. We went and talked to my daddy. And then we walked to the cross where my brother had his accident.
On the side of the road.
On the side of the
There's
road.
a white cross there.
And Rory proposed to me that night, 2 months after we started dating. And 2 months later, we were married. And that was 11 years ago.
And for us, even though I had been a single father for all those years, and by then the kids were 13 and 15, we both really wanted God's blessing upon our life and our relationship. And it felt like that God was involved in this. You know, I write songs about magic. It doesn't really happen. But in this one, like God was writing a song and I was a part of it. We were part of it. And so when we got married, we committed to wait until we got married. And by then I was, how old was I? 37?
36.
You were 36 and you were 26. And that's an important part of it, to make that decision. And we believed that if we just tried really hard to honor him, he would hopefully honor our marriage. And now we've been married for 11 years. And for us to go on and have a wonderful marriage and to be happy 5 years later, and to think that's as good as it can get. I mean, just to have a great marriage. Most people don't get that. And then him to turn a corner, us to walk around a corner, and him to have a career together waiting for us after that. And the magic just keeps happening. And I think it comes back to that moment when Joey felt God's tug on her heart to say, now this is him. And then when I prayed and I asked God for a sign, and then he showed me a sign, and I didn't question that, and I don't question it. And I don't think everyone gets that opportunity. I think it's probably there for everyone. But we have a testimony and a story that is tremendous. Most of the time we don't get to tell this story, but yes, we sing songs, and yes, we get to travel around, but that's not the story. The story is how we got here, and it's what makes it so powerful, because we're in awe of the whole thing. So, we're sitting here with Bill Gaither telling our story. How does that happen?
I love your song, That's Important to Me, because it's about everyday stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That song came about, Rory and I had just gotten married, and we went in town to write with his buddy Tim Johnson. And I'm not a writer. I didn't move to town to be a writer. I don't have the gift that y'all have in that. Everybody has an idea or thoughts and concepts. But we sat down and we started making a list, because they said, we're going to write a song for Joey.
Things that are important.
Things that are important to me. And so I started writing a list of what the things that my parents instilled in me as a girl. You're not going to watch TV all day. You're going to pay your bills. You're going to go outside, enjoy the fresh air. And that list literally became the song that is really now kind of the cornerstone
Of our music.
and of our marriage and our life together.